Brian? Tammy?
Here.
Jason? Here. Stand always in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go ahead and do delegations.
You want to do delegations or? Okay.
We'll go ahead and start swearing into the delegations. Brittany Gregory.
Brittany?
Hello, I'm Brittany Gregory. I'm the nurse practitioner at the Gilmer County Health Department. Our health officer, Dr. Michael Gregory, wants to express his apologies for not being able to attend this evening as he's at work. But mostly just trying to reinforce an recommendation for the continued mask use, as it has reduced the amount of quarantine from our students among the school system after we have implemented that. While we have seen some instances where patients or where individuals have had to be quarantined, we have seen a significant reduction in those cases. Therefore, he stands behind the recommendation to continue the mask mandate at this time, as it is being beneficial to our community, and especially in comparison to other counties that have some lacks in that. We are seeing a lot of improvement. So again, he expresses his apologies for not being able to attend, but he does believe that continuing the mask mandate is beneficial for Gilmer County.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Katie.
Good evening. I am here to speak about the mask mandate. Just really quickly in reference to what was just shared with us, the numbers have not changed. Whether or not they're wearing masks, whether or not it's summertime, wintertime, people are getting this virus, people are not getting this virus, people are getting the flu, people are not getting the flu. It's all over the place, and nobody really has any full-on answers as to what is the best way to decrease the numbers. I have tonight something to share with you from Kathy Hess-Krause, who is our new commissioner for the West Virginia State Athletics Department, is a microbiologist and a former member of the anti-bioterrorism team. There's 7 pages here, so I am not going to read all of it. I'm just going to summarize some of the larger pieces of it. She shared with us that data from hospitalized patients with COVID-19 and general public indicate that the majority of deaths were among older and chronically ill individuals, supporting the possibility that the virus may exacerbate existing conditions, but rarely cause death by itself. Face masks restrict breathing, causing hypoxia, which is an abnormally low concentration of oxygen in the blood, and increase the risk for respiratory complications, self-contamination, and exacerbation of existing conditions, as well as hypercapnia, which is an excessive carbon dioxide in the bloodstream, typically caused by inadequate respiration. She says breathing is one of the most important physiological functions to sustain life and health. The human body requires a continuous and adequate oxygen supply to all organs and cells for normal function and survival. Breathing is also an essential process, for removing metabolic byproducts like carbon dioxide occurring during cell respiration. It is well established that acute significant deficit in O2, which is the hypoxia that was described earlier, and increased levels of CO2, which is hypercapnia, even for a few minutes, can be severely harmful and lethal. While chronic hypoxia and hypercapnia cause health deterioration, exacerbation of existing conditions, morbidity, and ultimately mortality. Clinical scientific evidence challenges further the efficacy of face masks to block human-to-human transmission or ineffectivity. A randomized controlled trial of 246 participants 123 of who assessing virus transmission, including the coronavirus. This results of the study showed that among symptomatic individuals with fever, cough, sore throat, runny nose, etc., that there was no difference between wearing and not wearing the face mask. For coronavirus droplets, transmission of particles of less than, I don't know that measurement, but among asymptomatic individuals, there was no droplets or aerosols coronavirus detected from any participant with or without a mask, suggesting that asymptomatic individuals do not transmit or infect other people. There's a table that she sent that lists physiological effects, psychological effects, health consequences. Physiological effects are hypoxemia, hypercapnia, shortness of breath, increased lactate concentration, decline in pH levels, toxicity, inflammation, self-contamination, increase in stress hormones level, increased muscle tension, and immunosuppression. Psychological effects are activation of fight or flight stress response, chronic stress condition, fear, mood disturbances, insomnia, fatigue, compromised cognitive performance. And just some of the health consequences are increased predisposition for viral and infection illnesses, headaches, anxiety, depression, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, exacerbation of existing condition and other diseases, accelerated aging process, health deterioration, and premature mortality. There's so much in here that I wish I could just keep sharing, but the last piece of this that I'm going to share with you tonight is the psychological effects of wearing face masks, and I'm just going to read her whole.
That's 5 minutes, and I'm truly sorry.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say it has negative effects, and we are very clear. We just heard a list of all of these things that it harms, it affects. We are not saying it's not helping us go away. It's not helping us control it, whether or not we have these masks on or not. We're not doing any good for our kids. We have, you sit in a stadium full of people, we keep hearing these, it's half and half, well, it's not. You go in there and you see a few, yes, with face masks, but I guarantee you the majority is not for these. I also want to thank really quick you guys for opening that last piece up, that policy up for comment. I have 2 of my kids that are very, very happy basketball players right now. So working on that piece for the high school and middle school that you guys can vote on and make an amendment to change. But I have 2 and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you and congratulations to all you guys in here.
Carl.
Good evening. First, I want to thank the board for helping me hone my public speaking skills. Seems like I do this every couple of weeks, so thank you for that. I also wanted to thank, I don't know who's responsible for it, but the elementary school basketball policy that was up for review. My wife and I made a couple comments on there, and like she mentioned, we have a 2nd grader and we have a 4th grader, and they're both able to play. We're homeschoolers now, and so the policy, I don't know if it was changed or nobody really explained that to me, but I want to thank Principal Price also for reaching out to me and letting me know that they were able to participate. I know he could have just, if he hadn't said anything to me, I would have never known, and they wouldn't be participating. My daughter's playing tonight at practice, and she's very happy about it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I did not want to homeschool my kids, and I still wrestle with whether or not that's the right decision. However, at the beginning of this year, when I was lied to, or at the very least misled about the way that these mask mandates were going to work, we were told there wouldn't be any unless the county went to red, which to my knowledge never happened, yet they were instituted. And there's this magic statement in the policy that says something about unless there's some outbreak, then the Department of Health can institute this mandate. Anyway, so we were misled at the beginning of the year. And so since the rules, you guys changed the rules and decided that we were going to do these mask mandates, I felt like my healthy and active kids had already been muzzled for a year, and I was done with it. And so I felt that my hand was, basically I had to. When I saw the gross government overreach, I had to. In doing so, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler that were unable to be eligible to play basketball. Now, I studied the law and I figured out everything that needed to happen, and I found out that they needed to be enrolled in virtual classes through the county, and I attempted to do so and was told that that I had missed the deadline. Now, I was told by Joe Frazier and Shelley Mason, who called me on the phone and spoke to me at the same time, that they were okay with it, and they were very good. They were very patient with me. Obviously, I might be a hard person to deal with. They were very patient. I appreciate them. They told me that they were okay with my kids enrolling late. They told me that they had to speak to the superintendent. And I received a phone call later and was told that the superintendent decided it was too late. Long story short, I reached out to the state athletic director, and he told me that the school board has the authority to make my kids eligible. So because I was lied to, and then I was also lied to again because I was told that there's conflicting accounts of whether or not Patty Lowther ever even heard of the situation with my kids. So I don't know what the truth is about that, but I'm asking the board to use your power and allow my kids to play basketball. I have a 6th grader and I have a 9th grader. They will be enrolled in virtual classes next semester. They would have been enrolled in this semester had they been allowed. So please consider it. I ask that you vote on it or whatever you need to do to make it happen. Because again, homeschooling was not my first choice, and I hope that it's the right decision. I feel like it is, but it's something that I still wrestle with. It's something that I feel like I was forced into. But please don't punish my kids because I made the decision to homeschool them. Thank you.
Let's move right on in with the agenda, and I'd like to make an agenda adjustment. Let's move on to recognition of students.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome all the parents and students who have come to honor their students in regard to the literacy fair that we just had. So again, I thank you for bringing the students and parents. I'm glad you're here. Just a little bit of an overview on what the literacy fair is. The Gilmer County Elementary School and the Gilmer County High School opened up the literacy fair for any student who would like to participate. And it was hosted on October 8th at the elementary school and the middle school. The literacy fair projects were held on October 11th, and there was a total of 21 projects with 23 students competing at the elementary and 3 students competing in grades 6 through 8. This evening, we'd like to recognize our first place winners at the county and school level. So, Landon Hartshorn, first place, if you would come on up. Reagan Morgan, basketball. Jacob Brody Campbell. Lucas Shiflett. Ella Woodford. Kimmy Goff. Sophia Chapman. Kendall Frazier. Garrett Moyers. congratulations to those individuals who won at the county level. And I do want to read what books they did their projects on. Reagan Morgan did hers on Junie B. Jones and the Toothless Wonder. Jacob Brody did his on Dragons Love Tacos, and it was a cute one. I judged that one. Lucas Shiflett did his on Little Jake and the World Record Bass. Ella Woodford did hers on Sharks. Kenneth Goff did his on Spark, A Small Voice Can Change the World. Sophia Chapman's book was Karen's Worst Day. Kendall Frazier did her book on I Survived, True Stories, Nature Attacks. Landon Hartshorn and Garrett Moyers, and that was a pair, did theirs on Diary of a Wimpy Kid Wrecking Ball. And then our middle schoolers, and we were really glad to have those guys, Alexis Stoddard's book was Light in the Hidden Places. Kendra Fox's book was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and Brooklyn Ratliff was My Own Words. And these students were registered to go to the regional competition, which was held at the Waco Center, and this past Saturday. And our students competed very well, and some of them also placed at the regional competition, which is a big deal. So our first place regional winners, first place partners was Garrett Moyers and Landon Hartshorn. So they won first place at the regionals. Second place was Brooklyn Ratliff, and second place Ella Woodford. We did have a project that is going to go to the Greenbrier, and that's a big deal. It's Jacob Brody Campbell. So he will be going to the Greenbrier. Second place at the regionals was Kendall Frazier, and we had 2 third-place winners, Alexis Stoddard and Kendra Fox. So that's quite an accomplishment. And I would like those students to come out into the hallway so we can take their picture, if that's okay.
All right, we're gonna move on into the agenda. Specifically, the minutes from all 3 expulsionaries, 2 expulsionaries, and the regular meeting on the 25th of October. Second. A motion and a second to approve October 19th and November 1st expulsionary hearings and October 25th regular meeting. Is there any discussion, questions, or corrections? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer.
Good evening. Tonight, I have for you the August 2021 financial report. Slowly getting caught up on those with new fiscal year and financial statements and everything like that, but hopefully over the next couple meetings, we'll be all caught back up. Are there any questions with August's financial report?
So moved. Second. A motion and a second to approve both the checks written and the monthly financial report as submitted by the treasurer. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for it.
Student transfer of Tessa James, a 12th grader from Calhoun County to Gilmer.
Second. Have a motion and a second to accept the student transfer presented by the superintendent. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. I'm not going to change this, but I'm going to let Mr. Price go first because he needs to look.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So basketball practices at Gilmer County Elementary started this past Friday for second and third grade. We had 35 second and third graders coming out. This evening starts our fourth and fifth grade practices. The first 2 nights of practices are with all fourth and fifth grade students. We have 42 this evening there. So good stuff going on. For the first couple of nights, the coaches observe, they give them specific skills to demonstrate, and then the coaches will divide up the teams based on skill level, trying to even those teams out as best as we can to make it a good competitive season. We had an awesome Halloween production this past day before Halloween it was, I believe. Our third and fourth grade students put on an awesome production. We do dedicate a lot of time for this, but it is an educational experience for our students. A lot of reading, a lot of speaking and listening, and some standards that are being met with that. But it's also just a great elementary school experience for our students. And we had a lot of parents come out for that as well. It was a really good experience. We had, and that was throughout Red Ribbon Week. So in schools, when you hear about Red Ribbon Week, we do a Spirit Week. We celebrate the idea of being drug-free and making a commitment to be drug-free people in Gilmer County Elementary School. We have a Veterans Day Assembly being put on by our fifth grade class this Wednesday at 1:30 in the afternoon. I sent Patty an email to invite you, the board members, to this. We anticipate an excellent production. I have heard some of the things that are going on with this already, and I think that we will do our visitors and veterans proud with this service. And you guys are more than welcome to attend with that. Parents will be coming in of fifth grade students, and also family of the veterans will be welcome, and any student that's participating, their parent will be allowed to come in and see this production. But I do think it's going to be very high quality, and I think it will do our veterans proud. This past week, we had a standards deep dive here at the central office. Our kindergarten through fifth grade teachers came in for their second round of standards deep dive. Fortunately, we were able to get it covered for the most part, but I wanted to say I appreciate Shelley and the curriculum director for doing that, for allowing our teachers to come over and really focus on our standards. And then I think that's about all that I had. On the last meeting, when I presented, I had some questions that I do have answers for right now. I'd just like to share some information. There were some specific questions about numbers and students that have been quarantined. And so I have that information, and I'd like to share it with you now, if that's okay and appropriate. The total number of quarantines, again, this is an estimate that comes from our school nurse of what we know, and it's 123 from the start of school. And about 8 of those are duplicates. So just to note that some of those are a duplicate. That's about a guess there, but I just wanted you, that is as we had things so far. So take that on. You guys are obviously as aware as anybody about what protocols and things have been in place with that. But I wasn't able to answer that question last time, and I wanted to make sure that you guys had that information this time. If you guys have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you. Any questions?
I appreciate you letting me do it.
Also, Mr. Price, I just want to say the nursing home residents absolutely love the trick-or-treaters coming through.
That was an awesome little event.
Yeah.
That was an awesome event. I need to put that on. It was really, really good. But thanks for having us. Guys,
Good evening. We still have students at Gilmer County High School that are completing work. From the first 9 weeks, I've reported that we had a lot of incomplete grades due to COVID and long-term absences. If those long-term absences did not provide enough days before the end of the 9 weeks for kids to turn in grades, that those grades became incomplete, and students have until the midterm of this 9 weeks to complete that work. So we have more kids, I would say, in workroom and more kids in after-school tutoring, taking advantage of those opportunities to try to get work caught up, and that is progressing. We do have some grade change forms that's come through where we can translate or transfer those grades from I's over into letter grades. About 45% of our students in the first 9 weeks has made the honor roll, and so that's a positive. We have conducted standards discussions internally in our building to look at pacing guides for all of our teachers. Mrs. Mason, Sherry West, the curriculum team, have met also with our ELA teachers and math staff twice now this year. to address things like essential questions and assessment and alignment of the standards to what teachers are doing in the classroom, and how their lessons are actually reflected of the standards of West Virginia content standards. I too would just like to say I greatly appreciate the support for standards-based instruction that we have in our central office under Ms. Mason's direction. So thank you, Ms. Mason, for that. We also have a Veterans Day celebration. So you're over my shoulders. I'm kind of copying Tyson a little bit. This will be at 9 o'clock on November 10th, Wednesday. You are all welcome to attend that. And we have some great activities to honor our veterans, our local veterans at that event. Kind of shifting a little bit to athletics, I'll steal some of Mr. Frazier's thunder back here behind me. So thankful that he is our athletic director. So just a little shout out towards him and the organization that we've had in our fall sports up to this point. As you know, we had our golf team that made the states, and we're very proud of that. So now we have our varsity volleyball team that has won the sectional championship. We had a pep rally for them and bragged on the opportunity to be able to go and even compete for a regional championship. We were able to defeat Tulsa first, and then while we were at Buffalo High School, and I apologize if I let a little bit of my pride down there and cheered a little heartily at Buffalo High School, but it was a riot in that gym on their home floor, and we took from them their championship. And we really did play one of the most exciting volleyball contests I've ever been to in my life. And Gilmer County showed up. We had 11 kids ride a pep bus, plus the kids that came with their parents, and they had the entire end of their floor packed. And we came away with the regional championship. And I think it's been at least 10 years since we've had a regional championship in volleyball. So we're going to states on Friday at 8:30 in the morning. We'll play Greenbrier West. And if we take care of business with Greenbrier West, we'll play number 1 Ritchie County, who we played twice this year, and they are super tough. And we will play them at 6:30 that evening. So we're organizing, trying to get things together to be able to take students down for that event and keep them with us all day, give them an opportunity. The Gilmer County Central Office, Ms. Lowthers found a way to provide for bus and for ticket for students from 6 through 12 to be able to go down and partake in that event. Likewise, in football, even though we lost our last regular season game, we have made it into the playoffs. How many years has that been?
So it's the second time in school history.
Second time in school history. We are playing the number 1 team in the state, just like we hope to in volleyball. And but we're going to get to play them first. And that will be Cameron, and we'll ride all the way to the northern panhandle and all the way up there. And we're going to take a pep bus for that as well. See how this works out, because if we win volleyball, both games on Friday, we'll play in the state championship on Saturday at 9:30 in volleyball. And we'll be taking a bus leaving from Gilmer County High School at 10 o'clock in the morning to go to Cameron to play in our first playoff game in football. So kids are having to decide, who do I go and support? That's a great problem to have. So we're going to have playoffs in football, volleyball, and if our golf team, just from the fall sports. And we've got a lot more to go in athletics. Now, I'm very excited about academics, but I can tell you, I was never more proud to be a Titan than what those girls did down there at Buffalo. I'm telling you what now, I was really excited and still am. Okay, our COVID numbers are down at Gilmer County High School. We've had about 180 cases at Gilmer County High School, and probably around 30 of those that are duplicates. So that's 180 quarantines, not cases of COVID. So let me clarify. That's been quarantined, and probably about 30 of those that's been quarantined more than once. Okay, so you're looking at about 150 students. Okay. Right now, I think we're looking at 1 student that is quarantined at Gilmer County High School. That's not at school due to a quarantine. And that's what my latest data showed me this afternoon. Again, Mr. Frazier is going to talk to this topic, but we're getting ready to start construction on the front steps of the school. We had a meeting today with the contractor, the foreman, the architect, the city government, central office staff, and talked about what that's going to look like logistically and options we have for transportation around the school and such.
She's showing your picture, by the way.
Oh, she's showing my picture. Oh, yeah, that's,
In case you're wondering what she's doing.
yes, that's me in the floor with both my arms up in the air, celebrating the win. I thought everybody was going to, and I turned around, I was the only one that ran out from out in the middle of the floor. But, again, no shame there. Okay, that's what I have. Do you have any questions for us at Gilmer County High School? Be glad to answer it from the board.
Thank you. Well, Joe, you probably don't have anything to say now that John took it all.
I'd make a request that superintendent put me earlier in the agenda. Because I'll try not to be repetitive here, but some of it will be a little bit. He mentioned the steps, giving up the steps. I'll give you some dates. We did meet today, had a good meeting today. There will be times, I don't think we'll ever block where anybody can't get on the hill or anything like that. There will be times Pine Street, right in front of the steps, are going to need to be shut down. Now, traffic could detour and just use the outer loop. So I don't think it'll be any major thing. What we asked for was 24 hours notice. There may be some times we ask the staff at the high school to relocate parking for a little bit. On days they're gonna pound those steps out, or days they're gonna pour cement. So we ask if a staff, they may be frustrated. You know, everybody gets in their routine, the normal routine, and you may get a phone call because we've asked them to park behind the building or something. So we'd ask you to support us with that. We argued today, not argued, but worked with the contractors today and said we want to keep things as normal as we can for our staff, as long as we can, as far as parking and things like that. But I think it's going to be a good group to work with. We've never worked with this contractor before, so I think it will be a good group to work with, everything I've seen so far. A couple spaces we're going to allow them to use. As you look at Gilmer County High School, the left side of that parking lot, we usually keep about 3-4 buses parked there as spares. We've moved those in Brooklyn. If anybody would ask why buses went to Brooklyn, we're going to give the contractors that lot. So for the month or two that they're here, you're going to see a trailer come in and you might see some equipment over there. So we're going to give them that space close to the front steps for that lot. We're also going to allow them to use the back paved lot if they need any space back there. So those are the two spaces that we talked about today. They agreed upon, and we will use those. The good news, we're going to start seeing something. You'll start seeing equipment come in later this week. So we'll see equipment on site this week, but we're actually going to have them on site Monday, the 15th. And what you'll see first are the wooden steps. We need a way up and down before we take out the current concrete steps. So you'll see some, we're calling temporary, permanent wooden steps, because we'll leave them there. But that'll be the up and down, unless you come from either side while we're doing the front steps. We have given them our school calendar, and we have emphasized if there's any way at all in their schedule. Of course, weather will depend on this. How fast they move along will depend on this. But if they could take those concrete steps out that week of Thanksgiving, they will work Monday through Wednesday that week. I don't know if they'll get far enough on the temporary steps to allow them to take it out while nobody's there, while nobody's parked in that lot. So we have emphasized that. They are aware of our school calendar. We've given them many breaks. We told them we'll work with them, be as flexible as we can with parking and things like that. We did ask for street block off, and if we had to move staff parking, we asked for a 24-hour notice. So we can make our people aware, make the city aware that if we're going to do something with that street. So we're excited just to see that project going. Want the board to know their substantial completion date on that is January 2nd. So I do think this is going to be a quick turnaround. Once they move on site, they're going to be on site. They won't be anywhere else. They're getting paid this much money to do those steps. So the quicker they get it done, the more money they're going to make. So this will be, I think, a quick turnaround on those steps, and we'll have some nice new safe steps up to the high school. Hopefully a little less steepness. Keep in mind at that main entry, we're going to go back into the school a little bit. We couldn't come out on the street anymore because we don't own the street, but we are going to go back into the school a little bit, hopefully trying to reduce some of that steepness of those front steps. We are going to lose about 10 foot from the current steps in width, but we meet every requirement, every regulation we need to meet. So that's anything on the steps. It's just glad Clay and I've talked, we've had stuff on the board in there forever. It's just glad, we're just happy to see some movement. We're gonna see, we've talked about projects. This board has been very proactive in projects. You wanna see it done. We completely get it. We understand it. But we're gonna get, something's gonna start. And you've heard earlier this evening from ESG about the work they've already put in. They've been on site an absolute ton. Ever since this board signed the agreement with them, they've been on site and they've done a lot of work. You just haven't seen it yet. So hopefully soon we can start making some of that happen too. I will say last week, the superintendent presented to the SBA, and what we did, we turned in a project and we're asking for money. We're asking for help with the secure entry, and we're asking for help with the meat shop. Don't get me wrong, we have plans to do both those projects, even if we're not awarded that money. But we are hoping, obviously, if we're awarded that money, that helps. And that might make a meat shop where it's more turnkey and we have all the bells and whistles from day one. If we are awarded some money, where if we're not awarded money, we're still gonna have a meat shop, but we might have to add and do it in stages, whatever we can afford. So that's big. I felt the superintendent, not just because she's sitting there, I felt the best I felt leaving an SBA meeting in a long time. I thought it was very positive. I don't want to steal her thunder. She may be reporting on this later, but I had a good vibe. What we did, we put together a very good match. We have some monies. Like I said, we plan to do both these projects, whether they award us or not. So we had some money that we've obligated to it. What we did, we put all that money on the table. And we basically went with just under a 50-50 match. That's the best match we've ever went to in an SBA project. Usually we're about 10%. We're asking the SBA to fund us 90%. We're asking for 10%. We went with a 50-50 match. We went with a game plan and the superintendent sold it well. We're up against new schools, guys. We won't beat them in a scoring rubric. New schools are going to affect education way more than a meat shop or a secure entry. So we're going to lose that scoring rubric. But we went with the approach, sure, you're going to fund these new schools, but man, if you have 500,000 left over after you fund it, if you have 700,000 left over, we'll take whatever you have and let us knock at least one of these little projects out or something. So that's the approach we went with. Got a good vibe. We'll find out. Patty, I think it's December 17th.
Yes.
I think it's December 17th. So obviously we'll relay that to the board and we'll work on that. As far as athletics, Mr. Putman hit on most of it. This is awesome. I mean, I don't know. I know we've had a winter season where a boys basketball team and a girls basketball team have both made the state tournament at the same time. We've had that, and that's awesome. But I don't know if we've ever had a season. You know, we've got a fall sports season here with a golf team, a volleyball team, and a football team making the state tournament. And that's awesome. That's a credit to our coaches, their hard work, our student athletes, and then their parents. I mean, this takes a lot. And most of you sitting at that table, you've been there, you've done that. I know, Mr. Barr, on the end, you're just kind of jumping in the middle of it. But it's a lot of time. It's a lot of investment. And our coaches, our student athletes, couldn't be more proud of them. And then thank the parents for helping us out, bringing us to practice, supporting us. So it's just an exciting time. We hope, so far, both those teams have represented us well, and we hope they continue that, and we hope we have good outings. We have tough challenges ahead, but we're looking forward to them, and we'll hit them head on, and we'll live with whatever happens at the end of the day, and our kids have been successful with whatever results. I do want the board to know we are going to provide pet buses. Game time with that volleyball game on Friday, you know, with that game time being at 8:30, that's an early pet bus. That bus has got to leave by 6, and we hope that students will take advantage of the opportunity that we're going to provide. We'll provide the transportation. We worked with Clay and Patty today, and the school is going to provide for middle school and high school the ticket costs. So we've done everything we can do to make this so we can have the support of our student or of our athletes there for our student athletes while they're competing. We just hope people take advantage of it, and we will do the same. We've been very consistent today and spent most of the day planning, to be honest. I didn't do a whole lot of facilities today, not a whole lot of child nutrition today, not a whole lot of transportation, but we planned all day and trying to be consistent with football, with volleyball, to give both teams the respect that they deserve. And Mr. Putman was very, very helpful today. I want to put a plug in. I'm telling you guys, Patty Nicely at that high school, we couldn't be any luckier to have that woman up there. She is absolutely excellent to work with and probably keeps Mr. Putman and I out of a whole lot of trouble. So she keeps us straight. And I know I need that. Mr. Putman might be better off than me, but I think he hit on everything. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about the Athletics Times. We are going to post it. It's probably already posted on our Facebook pages. We tried to send just a kind of a football message and then a volleyball message. So whichever one you're looking at, you can look at this site and find that information. Try to make it simple, easy for people to understand, and just trying to do the best we can with it. Any questions?
Excited?
Excited, yes, exciting times, exciting. These are good problems. Unfortunately, so many times we got to work on some bad problems. These are fun problems to work out and figure out. So these are all good problems. Thank you, guys.
Does Shelley get to speak twice?
Mhm.
I've been gone for a month,
Oh, yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was our communities and schools folks. We do have, just as a reminder, we do have two ladies that are hired at the high school and one lady that is hired at the elementary for our communities and schools. And if you do not know what that is, those ladies work with students in the communities to provide needed services for students who do need services outside of what we can provide at the school. And just as an overview, we do meet monthly. I meet with them monthly in regard to their goals, their action steps, what they're working on, and then how we can help otherwise here at the central office. Just so you'll know, the elementary is focusing on students who do have that chronic absenteeism, and that's that group of kids who are looking to miss 10% of their school year, or 18 days. The high school is working on students who are credit deficient and trying to improve the behavior at that middle and high level. And like I said, those ladies do work in small groups, and they also work individually with students to try to meet those goals. So hopefully with those folks in place, that support staff, we will see some improvement in that attendance and that credit deficiency for students. For pre-K, we are going to go back to meeting face-to-face with our birth start. Since the beginning of school, we did have a face-to-face, but we've done a lot of virtual or drive-through birth starts. So we are wanting to bring students back in, and those are our kids that are 3 and younger, and to get used to the school. With federal programs, we just went through an audit, and with that audit, there are a few parts to that audit. I submitted stuff this summer and at the beginning of the fall for the desktop audit part. And then we did have an interview earlier last month now, in regard to what I submitted and what we were doing. We should have a final report in December. I think the middle of December is when that should come. So you should be looking for that. Along with professional development, I know Mr. Price and Mr. Putnam talked about the standards deep dive that we do, and that is just one area we're looking at with staff members to try to improve student proficiency in ELA and math. Looking at the standards that teachers are supposed to be teaching and making sure they do understand the depth of those standards so that they can provide standards-based instruction, and then not only provide the instruction that goes with it, but also allowing teachers to do those standards-based assessments, giving them time to work on that stuff, develop it, work as a team to make sure that they're on the right track. Along with professional development, we are sending teachers to the reading conference, and we are very excited to have teachers going. I know that's exciting for teachers, and I think it's just a little boost for them. How many are going this time? We are sending 10 teachers. And they will be going down to the Greenbrier, and again, it's all reading-based type professional development. Also, last month and then this month, tomorrow and the next day, we are going to be doing CPI training, and so I work with staff on crisis prevention, and again, that's for students that have behavior problems, trying to de-escalate those behaviors. And a lot of people think of it as a physical restraint. That's the primary purpose of it, but really it's not. It's trying to get to de-escalate the student's behavior to prevent that physical restraint. Concerning the ALC, some of the things that we were talking about with the ALC, we met as an admin not very long ago, and one of the needs was to try to increase the length of the day for the elementary and the middle high. So I've been in discussion with the State Department to look at how we can reorganize that so that we can have a full-time, full-day elementary program and a full-time middle school program. So I met with the State Department today, and we are meeting tomorrow as an admin team to review and discuss and try to work out some issues to try to get that to happen for students and teachers. The The last thing I wanted to talk about were the academic fairs that we are doing. Gilmer County is going to host the Regional Social Studies Fair again, and that is March 24th. And any board member who would like to be a judge, you just let me know, and I will sign you up. And because it does take about 30 to 40 judges to do that fair. It's a big thing. We also are moving forward with the County Math Field Day. That will be November 16th. The teachers at the elementary and the middle high school are working with their students and giving out placement tests to see who will be able to participate in those math field days. So we will be having some additional student recognitions after the November 16th math field day. Any questions?
Thanks, Sean. We'll move on into new business.
Okay, approval of policy 3330, which is the elementary basketball program.
So moved. There's a motion and a second to approve policy 3330 as presented. Any questions, comments, corrections? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Approval of policy 3050, which is open enrollment student transfer.
I'll make a motion that we approve policy 3050. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve policy 3050 for open enrollment and student transfers. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And the next is the COVID mask protocol, so we can have a discussion about that. The health department is still online if you have questions concerning that. We did meet as an administrative team, Mr. Putnam, Mr. Payne, Mr. Price, Mr. Fox, and then central office. And the consensus of the group was to keep the mask on, but to allow for time for like a break. If they go to the bathroom, they could take their mask off when they're in hall and go to the bathroom. But when they're seated in a classroom, in order to keep down the transmission, the consensus of the group was to remain with the mask on. And
Totally
even
disagree. I sat here tonight and listened to Mr. Putnam, Mr. Price talk about one has had 180 quarantines and the other 123. I roughly times that by 10. So we missed 3,030 days of instruction. During this 3,000, and maybe I'm wrong and somebody can correct me, but during the days our students has missed, I just want to know and nobody will answer it, is what have they missed? I mean, what has this done to our community? How many sick kids have we had? How many hospitalizations? I know there's no deaths. I just want to know what this 3,000 days of instructions our kids have lost has led to.
even if we don't have a mask mandate, we're still required to follow the quarantine guidelines. So if we are not in mask,
Required by
it's CDC recommendation, and Brittany, then,
recommendation, right?
Brittany, do you want to speak to that as a health professional?
Yeah, so we have to, as the health department and from the West Virginia health department oversees us, and Brenda can allude to this too, she's on the phone as well. We are mandated to isolate positive patients and quarantine exposures, and we are required to do that. As a school system, you know, I know you guys have your measures in place that whenever we have a positive, we go through those, but it is a requirement, both state and federal level, that when someone is quarantined, they have to, or whenever someone is exposed, they have to quarantine. So with the masks, if say Patty's positive and I'm not, and we both have a mask on, I don't have to go home and quarantine. But if either one of us have our mask off, and then we do. So it has significantly reduced that. So as Brenda and I were discussing, right now we only have one teacher and 3 students home. That's it.
Brittany, if the masks work, what would it matter if one had a mask on and one did not have a mask on? I guess my question about all this is, and I go back to what I've said from the beginning. I'm all about this free will. And if you feel your child should have a mask on, I believe your child should wear a mask. But I also believe that if you don't believe your child should have a mask on or have to wear a mask, then they ought to have that opportunity not to do that. And if these masks work, and I'm not saying they do or they don't, but I am adamant about this free will and parental choice because we have it with everything else. We have it with everything else. But if they work, why is it that both children have to be quarantined if I don't have a mask on and Patty does, and I have symptoms for COVID and I'm tested and I have COVID, if she has her mask on, and once again, I understand that these guidelines are recommendations as well. And I'm not going to get off on that, but I am concerned about why both people would have to be quarantined if she had her mask on. If the parent understood the fact, if they sent their child to school without a mask and they were exposed, then they would be quarantined. They were going to miss school and they were going to be quarantined. I have my questions about that, but with that being said, if they understood that, and that child went and was exposed and sent home and everything was on the up and up and right up front and transparent, I guess I'm right back to where I started. If the masks work, why are we sending both kids home?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, we don't make those CDC guidelines. So CDC says both individuals have to have a mask on. We can't stray from that. We can't alter that. So the problem with that is yeah, everyone has free will, but I send my child to school in a mask and Patty doesn't send her child to school in a mask and one of them is positive, the other one is affected. So no, the free will really doesn't stand because your child is affecting others around them, whether they have a mask on or not. So that's where the problem lies with this, is because one person can wear a mask and the other not, and it's still affecting everyone around them. Whereas if everyone's in a mask, the quarantine is significantly reduced. Again, do masks work? I don't know. But what I'm telling you is we're not allowed to stray from those guidelines. That is a CDC mandate. We don't get to alter that. And whether we agree with it or not, and whether you agree with it or not, we have to follow those guidelines. So if both individuals are not wearing a mask, everyone that they're exposed to that didn't have a mask on and both parties didn't are going to be quarantined. And we aren't allowed to alter that. That comes from, it is a reportable disease and we have to. We're not allowed to alter that. And if patient or if families refuse to do that, it's a reportable disease. So they can be addressed from the state health officers.
And I think that's part of the confusion too, Brittany, is, the quarantine process is not a recommendation. Whether we do it as a school, if we say, no, we're not going to do that, the health department will still say they are required to quarantine those kids. So if we go from, however many kids, if we have 10 kids that are positive for COVID, everybody has masks on, there isn't any exposure, we have 10 kids that we have to send on quarantine versus possibly 100 kids or at least 20, because at least one of them have come in, they've been in contact with the other person. So we're losing even more instructional time. We're losing even more students out of school at this time.
Absolutely.
I can say that it's always going to be in place, but the professionals, the people that are constantly involved in this and have these calls with the CDC on a regular basis, I can't help but follow those.
Absolutely. And here's my other issue with this is before we implemented the mask mandate and there was a positive person, we were having to quarantine sometimes an entire class, sometimes 18 to 20 other individuals. Now that the mask mandate is in place, at most, we are quarantining an additional about 5 individuals, and that's related to recess and lunchtime. It's not related to the classroom time or anything like that. So I have to say that I agree with what Patty was saying with Mr. Price and Mr. Putnam. You know, I agree. There needs to be some form of ability for the students to take their mask off. Implement an area in each classroom where they can go and they can stay 6 feet away from people if they need a moment to take that mask off. But it's not fair to have to isolate or quarantine an entire classroom just because Henry doesn't want to send his kid to school with a mask.
I'd like to make a comment about the mask. I think that we're not all going to agree, I'll guarantee you that.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think that I wear a mask not to protect me. I wear a mask to protect you. Because this past year, my daughter had cancer. I wore a mask to protect her. I didn't worry about protecting myself. If you want to see where masks are at and who's wearing them, go to the VA hospital. Every worker, every doctor, every patient, everybody that walks in the door has a mask on. And if you don't, you put one on. These are people that fought for our country, defended it, done everything they can to protect us, and they're not going to let fire destroy them.
Well, they have to.
Actually heard those exact words.
And it's a mandate when you walk in the building.
That's right.
So they're gonna have a choice. Same thing we're doing to our children. So I'm back to you, Patty. Heard I don't know who's on the phone, but she's talking about, you want our kids to maybe take their mask off, or your group, when they're going to the bathroom. She just talked about when they're isolated in their classroom.
Well,
So do we have a plan, or, I mean, because I'm confused.
that's why we brought it back to you this evening, because when we met, we also talked about exercising in the gym, because it's very difficult with rigorous activity to breathe through a mask, like when they're running the mile. You know, that they should be able to take that mask down when they're doing that type of activity. We also talked, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, we also talked about, you know, having you come into the classroom and you take it down for a few minutes to get that fresh breath of air. And then when we start class, it has to go back up, because you're going to be, it's 15 cumulative minutes. It's not just 15 minutes at a time. So that was what we had talked about.
Patty, has there been an uptick in COVID cases in West Virginia?
It comes and goes. I
And
mean,
ours is not going up.
No.
Ours has dropped significantly. And I think whoever's on there, Tammy can probably tell you, because she follows it.
It's
406
over the past,
in the state.
well, I mean, I can bring the CMS guidelines.
Well, see, some people see that as saying we don't need masks, and I see that as the mask is really what happens there.
Well,
So
and
it
it's,
depends on
what
what
we're to be if we weren't. And again, does it work 100%? I don't know. Again, my public opinion, my personal opinion, regardless of what I think, does not matter right now. We are in the middle of a pandemic still. That has not changed. And at this point, it's my duty to make sure that I follow the recommendations of professionals. Not, and that's it. Right now, we follow the CDC. If not, then, what's the purpose at all? Why am I doing it? First thing I'm going to work out.
So I can't disagree with what you said, because I don't have facts either. But what I can say, outside of the kids in Gilmer County and Tammy's nursing home, I don't know, there's not masks in Gilmer County.
We are at college.
Huh?
We are at college.
But I was
You're
just
not,
on the bus to see if
Your
there was
club
nobody. I mean, your bus drivers and your students on the bus don't wear them. That's what the
I don't
president.
control that, but I can tell you, we did get an email from academic affairs that we were indeed going to the jobs. We're not even coming back after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But
Fair enough. I was on campus today, did not see that. So what I'm saying, and I'm like Brian, I'm for personal choice, but everywhere in this community doesn't have a mask on, okay? And I'll give Mr. Barr the benefit of the college to some degree, because he's there every day. I'm just there occasionally. And it's still coming down in our community. Majorly coming down in the state. When we started this mask mandate, and I think it was August 29th, there was 24,000 cases in West Virginia. And at that time, there was 11 or 1,200 hospitalizations. Today, I'm going to say there might be 6,000 cases, or maybe 4,000 cases. I can't remember. I looked, and half or maybe 40% of the Football season's open, sport events have opened, people are without masks in West Virginia. Schools, Mr. Frazier, you have a friend in Tucker County, they relieved their masks a month ago, or close. Have you had any updates with him? Have they had outbreaks? Because I looked, I didn't see it.
Not the last 2 weeks. Tucker is a small single way. When we played them in the football game, they were 2 weeks into removing their mask mandate. They are one of 2 counties that I'm aware of the 53 that had a mask mandate. They are one of the 2 that I'm aware of. Richie was the other one that have removed it. 2 weeks in, this guy did report to me good results. 2 weeks in. That was whenever we played them for our home football game. I think on the 29th or something like
Well,
that.
I just checked, I was just in Parsons, and their local paper didn't say anything about it, so take that for what it's worth.
I will tell you, the Cabell County though, 1 week, they removed their mask, they're back in mask as of today, because their numbers, they just.
And again, I think part of it still goes back to quarantine too. And we will get to the point where we can probably not have to wear masks. And I truly believe that. I think the numbers have to be there,
What do they have to be though? I mean, what do they have to be before you're gonna believe that they were there? What was that?
Hello?
That's what I'm saying, again, there is probably a safe recommendation. I'm not the professional in that area, so I couldn't tell you what that safe recommendation is. However, I think that when we get to the point of outbreak, regardless, just like if you're in a hospital, and you have a certain floor that might have an outbreak, the numbers in Harrison County must be low. However, they may have to close off 2 whole floors because of a COVID outbreak and implement procedures that they had to back when COVID was serious, a lot worse than what it is right now. But at the same time, even when we do go back, or if we get to that point where we don't have masks again, we still have to follow the quarantine procedure. And I want people to be aware of that. Because, when this all first started, before we went to masks after this big outbreak we had in Gilmer County, that was one of the complaints was the quarantine. I don't want to have my kid quarantined. I don't want my kids out of school. This was one of those things to put in place to keep that from happening, unfortunately.
Tammy, the hospitals are still having major problems. I know people right now that's waiting for bypass surgery and major surgeries that they can't get into the hospital again. So it's not over.
It's not over. What I can tell you, my call last week that we had, overall nationally numbers are coming down. They came down, pretty significant. You have your little curve that comes down. Then we flattened out. However, over the past 2 weeks, nationally, we're starting to see another uptick. So sometimes that happens after mass testing. You'll see the numbers kind of creep up a little bit, and then they go back down and flatten out. What they're hoping is that it doesn't go back up again.
It's roughly 7,000 people in Gilmer County. Our school system, with faculty, staff, and all, have what, 950? And
Yeah.
you're probably a couple hundred patients and not that many. So what I'm going to roughly say that possibly 15% of our county's face masks, maybe 30%. I don't know. I know tonight in this meeting when we had as many people, and I don't know if anybody else counted, but we had 39 people in here. 24 of them were without, 15 were with. And by no means do I think that somebody, because I choose not to, that I think somebody that wears a mask, I respect that. And I've respected it since day one because it's your personal choice. And it makes you feel safer. And I know exactly what Tom's talking about with his daughter. I have a father that I've not been around a lot for 18 months in a close personal space just because of the very thing Tom's talking about.
Well,
Let me just finish this when you. But we dropped. We were a hot spot at some point in time, not according to maps, but we know we had a. So this has went down without masks. You can say it's because of the mask, but it's went down without masks because a good 70% of the people in Gilmer County aren't and haven't worn masks for a long time. And we can sit here and say we wear them, but I see everybody in this room that's got one on. I've seen you without it in instances. Not just here,
And it's your personal right, and you want to feel safe wearing it.
Well, and to add though, let's say, for example, this happened this evening, this is not a mandated environment right now. However, let's say somebody that was in this building tonight came down with COVID, okay? You wouldn't have to quarantine because you're 90 days within the COVID recovery period. You're within 90 days, okay? You're considered COVID recovered. In fact, you're not even supposed to test in the first 90 days. Somebody again, because of COVID. Yes, I show you that you're not supposed to. Because you can test positive for up to 90 days for COVID-19, especially with the Delta variant. Second of all, lost my train of thought. Also, if somebody's fully vaccinated or boosted, they don't have to vaccinate, they don't have to quarantine either. However, everybody else in this room, the health department would have to say, okay, we're gonna have to quarantine you. Okay. So that is something, when we're outside of the school setting, what we do, you take that choice, that chance, whether you're at a ball game, whether you're at church, whether you're in the grocery store, if everybody feels that they can maintain 6 feet apart all the time, go for it. But I don't know any place that could possibly happen. But again, that's everybody's choice outside of that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the experts say that, let's see, I believe I heard we've got 2 sports teams in the state, is that right? Going to all states? And she said that, I believe the expert said that the quarantine
What expert?
wasn't gonna change, right? The health department, the expert. I'm sorry, I should have said that. So do we really want to take that game right now? With 2 teams going states, we really want to take that game right now?
Mr. Burr, I just feel like taking that gamble every day outside of school anyway. I just feel like.
But Doug, I think you're missing the point here. You're saying that each person doesn't wear a mask outside of a school event, which is correct. I can guarantee you I've seen everyone without a mask. But the difference is, if I walk into Foodland and pick up a steak and check out, I haven't been exposed to someone for 20 minutes without my mask on before I leave. In a school setting, and listen to me. In a school setting and in a sporting event, you are guaranteed to be exposed to someone for 20 minutes cumulatively. So it's a difference in whether you wear a mask in a school setting versus whether you wear a mask in these other settings.
Hey, hold on. Everybody except for Brittany, please mute your phones. You're talking over top of her, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Brittany.
So I don't know what you caught of that, but the difference of being inside of a building in a school or in a sporting event and wearing a mask is completely different than being in public, because I can't mandate everyone in this county to wear a mask to reduce exposure. But I also can guarantee you that if I know without a doubt I'm going to be inside a building for more than 20 minutes, I'm going to wear my mask. But if I'm walking into a grocery store, I can guarantee you that I'm not going to be around anyone for 20 minutes or less. If I'm at my family's house, I'm probably going to be around them without my mask on. But I'm not going to go to school around people or in my work establishment and not wear a mask to protect other people around me to have to be quarantined from an exposure. The difference is, and I think that that's where you're getting wrapped up in this, is that everyone doesn't wear a mask 24 hours a day. No, they don't. But at school, you're guaranteed to sit across from someone or near someone for longer than 20 minutes. And if both individuals aren't wearing a mask, and someone's positive, they're isolating and quarantining. So there's a huge difference in what happens in everyone's personal life versus what happens in a school system.
I don't think it's any different at a crowded sporting event, Brittany. I don't think you can isolate much difference in a classroom. I've sat at a sporting event recently and there were people all around me for 20 minutes. So I don't believe you can isolate that. But I understand everything that's been said. It just, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, because I do believe in democracy, as I've said before, and I can agree to disagree, but this all at times, it just seems almost fake to me at times, because we must do this and we must do that, and then at the moment we have opportunity to do what we want to do.
Where's your water?
We do, and very few people have these masks on. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong in the way I'm thinking. But I don't believe that you can say that these sporting events aren't pretty close to classroom setting at times.
Right, but the difference is, I can say I walk into the high school to watch a volleyball game, and I find out the next day I'm positive. Not everyone in that gym is going to be quarantined. It's only going to be the people that I sat next to 6 feet or less and that were around me for more than 20 minutes. Not everyone at that sporting event is going to be contacted. But in a school setting, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be 6 feet or less, and there's 8 different classes. So you have at least 8 different classrooms that are exposed to you, plus lunch, so there is a lot more exposed than if I walk into a game positive and sit down in a bleachers. It's going to be about 5 people mostly around me that are going to be exposed, and nothing more.
Right.
So there's a big difference. And thinking that COVID is gone is very ignorant. I challenge everyone in that room to come work with me for 30 minutes. I can guarantee you won't survive.
That's a pretty bold statement, really.
Very.
Well, come to work with me. Come walk through our ICU and see what masks do. And I can guarantee you every single patient, because I asked them today, have you been vaccinated? Do you wear a mask? And almost every single one of them, to one of those questions or another, say, no, but I wish I did. So it's you see what is happening right in front of you. But as we talked about, we had 3 fall sports teams that are at state level this fall. I can guarantee you at least one of those events probably we would not be participating in had it not been for masks.
People look at the mask and they've made it a political issue.
Right.
And that's the biggest.
Absolutely.
You see it as an issue because you have to wear a mask and you have the freedom not to. That's how you see it. And I said, you don't have the freedom to breathe all over me without a mask. That's the difference.
And again, even if it's not, death, of course, is the worst thing that could possibly happen with COVID. And I have a 30-year-old in a nursing home that got COVID, was intubated. They had to decide whether or not they wanted to take her off of intubation and let her go because her lungs had failed, or if they wanted to give her a trach. She decided on the trach. She's going to be living with that trach for the rest of her life. I have another one. She's only 38 years old. Same thing. I mean, there's serious issues, and unfortunately, like I said, I have some people to say, death from COVID is one thing, but living with lifelong effects of that could also be.
It's not purely COVID.
I'm sorry?
It's not purely COVID. COVID is not the thing that causes the beginning and the end of all of those health issues.
Well, not always,
It's
no.
nothing that
But for some
exacerbates it.
people that have been completely healthy, it was.
But that number is so infinitesimally small.
Well,
and
I
it's
won't
not
debate, I'm not
affecting
going to
our
debate or
kids.
argue
Yeah, we're
this
not
with
into
you.
that. We're gonna move, let's move this discussion forward.
I'd like to what our administrative wants to do, at least through Thanksgiving. We can revisit it once the holidays to see where we're at. Kids are even saying, oh, please, we need the mask. I know it shouldn't be about sports, but you've got some kids that are really asking that the mask stay on, or they're going to get an excuse and stay home because they want to participate in what they work so hard for. And it's a great possibility. I mean, we had that happen to our basketball team, our boys basketball team this spring. We didn't have masks on and they got shut down. So they were very disappointed. I hate to see these young people who've worked so hard to get to this level.
So what are you bringing to the board?
We'd like to maintain with the mask, but give them the opportunity so when they sit down, they can pull it down, get a fresh breath of air. If they go to the bathroom in their hall, and this is what we talked about as administrators, that they have that opportunity to get that fresh breath of air, and especially when they have a PE class. I know that's one more place we'll have to trace, but we do have cameras in the gym, so we can trace there. And that
Mr. Button, how are you going to police this?
That's me.
Yes.
I think there needs to be a compromise when you look at the division among your board, when you look at the division among your community, to say, where are we at right now? How healthy are we? And what kind of risk are we going to take? You need to consider your athletic teams. You need to consider kids being able to breathe and be able to get some fresh air. You need to consider what you're hearing about the positives of masks, but you also have to admit and you have to say it's a requirement of what's going to happen with quarantine. So my take on this is this. My kids will be quarantined if we're not wearing masks. And whether or not they're sick or not, or whether or not you believe quarantine or masks work, they're going to be out of school, and you're going to multiply that by 8. When we wear the mask and they do the contact tracing, then those kids are allowed to stay in school if they've had their masks on. And we have kids that are in school solely because 2 kids wore a mask to step beside each other. Now, how can we, within the confines, the health department probably doesn't like this statement, but in the confines of those rules, what flexibility can we offer students? Could they take them off when they walk down the hallway between eight times a day while they're walking to their next class? Could they take them off? Are they going to be within 6 feet of the same person for 15 minutes as they're passing each other in the hallway? No. So could they take them off in the hallways between classes? Do I have to keep giving detentions for kids wearing their mask pulled down off their nose as they pass me in the hallway? Or as soon as they pass me, they take their mask off in the hallway? According to the guidelines that we heard today, if they had their mask off between every class, there wouldn't be enough contact exposure time passing somebody in the hallway that would cause them to be quarantined. They take them off in gym class. Are they within 6 feet if they're in rigorous physical activity and movement across that gym? No. They're not up against the same kid unless they're playing man-to-man basketball for 45 minutes. They're in a large area with great ventilation, and they can't breathe because they're running and they're sucking that mask into their mouth. Could they take them off during gym class? I think they could. Would that cause a lot more kids to be quarantined in our county? No, I don't think it would. So how can we look at this and say, where are the areas where we can play with inside the rules, our kids can breathe better, and we're still not quarantining a third of my school? Because I can tell you, I do believe that what the health department tells us, that there's no choice when they tell me these kids have to go home. We have no choice in that. That's not a recommendation. That's a requirement. We do have an option of how we wear face masks. That we can vote not to wear them at all. But when we have a small outbreak, you're going to be sending a volleyball team home. You're going to be sending a football team home and a basketball team home. And you're going to be sending a whole lot more kids home. And they're going to miss a whole lot more school. Multiply your number by 8. And your 3,000 days is going to become 24,000 days. Because that requirement is we will have to send them home. My primary goal in all of this, keep my kids in school. And I always say it should be to keep them healthy. I don't know. I'm not a health expert. I'm a principal. And I know if kids aren't in school, they don't learn well. And I want my kids in school.
Might I ask you something, Mr. Butler, about, and I appreciate everything you said. I had that question about the parameters of this back some time ago, and certainly, once again, appreciate y'all putting that together. But how about your educators? I mean, they're not within 6 feet of those same students at all times, correct?
We discussed educators. We discussed people that are double, fully vaccinated, adults. Should they wear their mask? Can kids hear them talk? There are times when teachers are within 6 feet of kids, when they're helping kids, when they're around kids. It's two sides. It's not cut and dry clear to me, right? To be honest with you, I wish that teachers didn't have to wear them. I wish kids didn't have to wear them. Can't hear the kids talk to each other, can't hear what they're saying to the teacher, they can't hear the teacher talk. But I can tell you, there's people that are fully vaccinated, that are still getting COVID. And if they were within 6 feet in a faculty meeting, and I got to put 5 teachers out of my building because they sat beside each other to eat their lunch, then I don't have enough teachers to teach school, and we're going to have to close down our school. And then you got 400 kids, 440 kids that's not getting an education. So you look at all those type things and you say, well, I'll wear a mask to stay in school. I'll wear this mask to keep kids in school, keep my teachers in school.
So we wore masks for 3 months, and we still missed 3,000 days cumulatively.
I would be, what I'd like to look at, because I do believe early on we were doing this, I was involved in 2 or 3 of them, and we didn't have the mask mandate. And I've asked Bev these numbers, but I don't want to speak for Bev. Brittany might be able to speak to them. But before we had the mask mandate per student, because again, now you're looking at 8 periods a day, we're quarantining anywhere from 20 to 30 kids per positive case. Once we made the mask mandate, that number, I'd say 5 to 10 kids. And 10 is probably real high once we made the mask mandate. Again, I'm not saying I agree with any rules or not rules, what works, doesn't work. I have no idea. One thing Mr. Putman hit on, the superintendent hit on, when we met as an administrative team, we're trying to follow the current rules and keep as many kids in school. I'd like to know, Doug, if there's 3,000 days by your math, and I don't know the answer, so I'm not trying to be a smart aleck or anything like that. How many were early on before the mask mandate? Because after the mandate, it's got to be low. I would say it's front end heavy.
29th of August, so.
Okay, my guess is that 3,000 is front end heavy. I will say from the teacher standpoint, I live with one. I think I live with a very good one. It is hard right now for our teachers. That 3,000 you mentioned out of school there, they're teaching the kids they have in school, and they're also trying to provide that work at home for those students. So our teachers have such a heavy load right now. There's no doubt in my mind, which I have very many doubts on this whole COVID, mask, all this stuff. There's no doubt in my mind under the current rules that we do not have a choice. And whatever, if we went no mask, we'd have way more kids out of school. And I believe this audience gets way bigger because we have way more kids out of school. And then when I go back to our teachers, and Shelley always talks about our teachers, I think all of a sudden if they get to 50-50, have 50% of the kids in school, 50% of the class at home, we have put a huge burden on our teachers trying to keep up with the kids in school and the kids out of them. So under the current rules, and I don't want to speak for the whole admin team, I'm just speaking for me, and we had a great discussion. We took it very serious, and we considered every avenue. The bottom line, it came down, how do we keep the most kids in school? And right now, under the current rules, whether we agree or don't agree, it's the mask. Because the number goes up of kids quarantined if the mask come off. And that's not our rules.
I think you're right on, and I think one of the big problems we have right now in the school system, we're having a lot of problems getting substitutes in certain areas we need. Therefore, we're not able to provide the needs for the kids that we need because we can't get the substitutes. So that's a big problem that we need to deal with. And then without the mask, it's only going to grow worse. And, if your wife has to be out, somebody has to teach that class. And if you don't have any substitutes, we don't have any substitutes to call. It's tough. The teachers double up. You do the best you can.
Like I said, our admin team, and there were people in that room that spoke against it, and just some of the same things these parents have said very well at a lot of meetings. And some of the points I'd have to agree with personally. But it was, how do we keep the most kids in school? And under the current rules that we believe, 100% we have to follow the quarantine. And how do we keep the most kids in school? And it is the mask mandate.
Did you work out with the health department with the mask mandate you recommended tonight?
Yeah, we talked, yes.
Okay, you worked it out with them.
Mm-hmm.
Guess my question for you, Joe, is
The difference,
if you didn't think that teacher you lived with was any good, you would be honest. So Patty, I'm gonna get this done to you. What you're wanting to do is leave this mask mandate in place as it is today.
With the ability to have some time that they can take their mask down to get a fresh breath of air if they go to the bathroom. That was the consensus. And we spent 2.5 hours talking about that. So, we didn't take it lightly. We were trying to figure out what was the best way. And the bottom line is, without masks, you're going to quarantine greater numbers.
I would ask that you just be as liberal as you could possibly be
I'll make a motion to that
with
effect.
that.
That we follow your recommendation based on your consulting with the health department.
And I also put my administrative team in there, because they're the ones who's living
You
it
have
every
your
day,
administrative team.
every day.
So we have a motion and a second to, I don't even know how you want to quantify it or put it in the minutes, as far as Patty's recommendation to modify the mask mandate for health department superintendent and
Administrative.
administrative team.
We want to give them a chance to have that opportunity, because we understand what it's like to have that mask on. And when they're going to the bathroom by themselves, they really don't need to have their mask on when they're in the bathroom by themselves.
So we have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
To have it as is, but also add in there that it would be reevaluated after Thanksgiving.
Fair enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Old,
We don't-
unfinished business.
We don't have any.
Personnel.
You've got an updated personnel agenda, which we have just the extracurricular on. We have Jessica Montgomery, head mini Titan cheerleading coach for basketball season, and Mary Beth Sauer, resignation for head varsity cheerleading coach, effective November the 2nd.
So moved. We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel attachment and agenda brought forth by the superintendent. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then, as Joe said, we did present to SBA on the 2nd of November. Very positive about that. And I think we've had some other people help and talk with some other individuals, so we really appreciate that. Now, back to what Mr. Minnie was talking about, I just want to give you a heads up that the 12th, which is Friday, we're looking at a severe sub shortage. Not only just teachers, but bus drivers and service personnel. So it may come down that we may not be able to have school Friday due to lack of substitutes. We've covered, I know Mr. Putnam has used, they have 2 plantings up there, and it's been tough getting these subs. We did have a sub fair, and we have 4 that we got that are working, so we can add 4 more, and we're running again this week, and hopefully we can get some more substitutes.
Why is there such a large shortage? I know Calhoun, I think, had the same issue, but theirs was like a 4-day weekend type thing or something, so.
Well, Calhoun is out Friday too, which would mean we'll have the Career Center kids in our buildings. So we're already going to be short with teachers, and then we're going to have that on top of it. So I just want to give you a heads up. It's looking like.
I'm just curious as what the shortage was like. Is it a normal shortage? Is it
No.
Tammy, the state has a general problem right
Yeah.
now. Teachers and substitute teachers and people qualifying to be teachers. And fewer and fewer are getting their degree in teaching. And it's just now catching up with us, and it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
So the homegrown thing we're doing in college is actually coming back, is that very good?
Yes.
Talking about it's a brand new problem.
Yes. So, just want to give you a heads up that may happen.
I didn't catch what you said. What would you say?
I said that we have a homegrown program at the college, and it was designed to combat the teacher shortage. It's actually, if they come to Glenville and get a degree as a teacher, and then they go back to their home county to teach with their degree, we give them some scholarship money to complete their degree. Hoping to keep teachers in West Virginia.
Anything else?
No.
Is Friday an excused absence for those children going on the pet bus?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
If that's the route we're going to take, I think we should do it as soon as possible to let the parents in Gilmer County know
Well-
that they're going to have childcare for Friday.
Well, we're looking, like today, I have 4 right now that's not covered. So that'll go out tonight through our subsystem. Tyson's actually helped me keep track of it with it. And, we'll know by tomorrow where we're looking at.
if we could not make the recommendation by tomorrow at the end of school,
Yes,
if that's gonna happen?
Yes.
It just,
I know Joe,
Parents that have to find childcare.
well, and Joe's also having issues trying to, with the bus drivers as well, correct?
Yes, right now we have 3 that are requested to be off, of course. And it's not all about athletics or anything like that, but if I'm lucky enough to get those 3 covered for our normal runs, then may be not a pet bus, simply because we don't have the drivers to cover our regular runs and take a trip. So that factors in. Right now we have 2 cooks that requested to be off Friday. Now we have worked shorthanded, unfortunately, at times, and we have, those ladies will make about anything happen, about anything you ask of them. So they will make about anything happen, but it's still early in the week. It's Monday and I have 2 out and we have 2 subs. So I'm not saying I couldn't get this field. I probably could get this field, but it's still Monday. And I guess you have that 4-day weekend people might be looking at. You got Thursday off for Veterans Day. And I'd say, if we're just being honest, I'd say a lot of staff is looking at a 4-day weekend.
Sure.
If you're asking.
And so I think the quicker we make that decision for Friday, and the writing seems to me like it's on the wall.
Yeah,
I don't
unfortunately.
think for you and your team to decide, not us. Board member comments? Thanks, everybody, for coming, your patience. It's a tough time. I know it is divided. I don't think it's divided, my personal opinion, but I see it. Mr. Putnam, Tom made sense to me. I mean, it's not going to change me, but I get what they're saying. You know, I also feel quite strongly that we're moving through this. We've seen the numbers drop dramatically everywhere, and our kids need to learn and grow. Hopefully that's in the school, but I'm afraid what we've done is, not we as what this country's done or what this virus has done is something we may never be able to repair. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I remember to stop it recording.